Hello, everybody. Welcome to an awesome episode. Member Spotlight. Have the great honor of interviewing Patrick Hilario. He's a real estate investor, a teacher, and a coach for real estate as well. And we're going to be diving into, the real estate world and how it connects with contracting. Real estate and contracting go together like, I don't know, bacon and eggs, I guess. And so we're going to be learning the ins and outs from kind of the other side of the fence of like a real estate investor, of someone who's hiring contractors, but also the systems and way that Patrick here manages his construction projects, working with general contractors and trades and all that good stuff. So welcome here, Patrick. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me, Derek. Pretty excited for this interview.
Yeah, for sure. Super excited. So can you tell us a bit about yourself, your business, kind of your entrepreneurial journey of getting into real estate and past, present, future?
Yeah, totally. So basically I started as a teacher. Like I taught high school sciences for about 4 years professionally, and then taught out in Quebec for about a year.
Okay.
And really kind of fell into real estate. Like I had always a passion about financial literacy and how I always found it interesting that we were never taught about money in school.
Yeah.
And so I had to do like my own self-education and got some coaching around financial literacy and real estate. And like I met my mentor, Nelson Camp, and he was the one that taught me. He's like, hey, this was back when I was still in university to be a teacher. And he basically said, once you get that permanent contract, like do what's called a house hack, where I buy a house, 3-bedroom, 1 or 2 baths, live in one room, and then rent out the other rooms. So I can essentially live for free, like rent, like not have to pay rent essentially, and then also offer my friends some cheap rents. Now, that was kind of my first, I guess, foot in the door into real estate and learning how to be a landlord. But after that, I was like, okay, well, I used my life savings to get this house. How do I get another one? And that's where I was like, hey, I just got to hire a coach, someone that can put me on a fast track to success and avoid mistakes that in real estate can cost you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
got the coach, learned how to raise capital, learned how to do like private deals, a little bit of marketing. And yeah, by I think the first year we did about 2 deals using none of my own money. And second year, that's when things got a little more, I guess, we had better systems. Plus, we had a pandemic to deal with. So I guess that kind of lit a fire under my butt. And yeah, that's where we did. I think we did about 14 deals that year, 12 or 14. And yeah, continued to buy homes, and eventually coaching company that coached me to become a real estate investor actually offered me a position as a coach. And kind of happened was I was raising capital from one of my friends, and he's like, how are you able to like give people these kind of returns? I see you passing checks for like $25,000, $50,000 to people. And I was like, hey, like if you're interested, we can go lend me some money. We can go half on a deal, and we can both get into real estate. And he's like, honestly, I want to do it on my own. I was like, okay, cool. And he basically asked me to coach him. And I said, I'm not too sure yet. This is before I had like my coaching business. And I wasn't really, like, I wasn't as confident, right? I didn't know if I could give them the results. And he really believed in the value of equal exchange. So he essentially said, hey, I'll give you tattoos for free and you coach me real estate. So every year I get a tattoo from him, and I still coach him to this day. Within the first 30 days of coaching, we were able to get him his first deal. So that was pretty awesome. And that gave me the confidence of like, hey, I have experience teaching. I know how to kind of differentiate how each student learns and their different learning techniques, plus a little bit of experience and success in real estate. So kind of combine those two. And yeah, here we are still investing in real estate and still coaching people how to get into real estate.
Yeah, wonderful. No, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing, your story and your journey with us. A lot to unpack there. I think it's awesome that you were a teacher before, so you understand how teaching, mentoring, coaching, the value of that. You did a lot of things successfully as far as finding someone who is in the know and could show you kind of the ropes and how to get things set up, and then also your trajectory was quite quite incredible to go, your first year, usually you're trying to just sort of figure things out and
Right.
get your bearing and learning a lot and probably making a bunch of mistakes and and just going through the trenches, so to say. And then your second year doing the 14 deals, just shows like as an entrepreneur, sometimes you put in a lot of energy and a lot of effort and maybe you don't see all the results, but it compounds, right? And with the right guidance and the right activities, you can really ramp things up. So that's incredible. And then transitioning into the coaching, which is just awesome. So super cool. Speaking of like your first year there, probably still, I mean, entrepreneurship is anything but smooth sailing. So what are some challenges you had when you started your real estate business, getting into it? What are some of the things that came up and some of the lessons that you learned?
A big lesson, and I guess challenge too, that came with that first year in real estate was learning how to be a landlord and building systems for that. Because I didn't know what I didn't know in the beginning, right? Like I thought I was like, oh, I'm just living with some friends, it'll be all good. And then kind of quickly realized, oh, we got to have systems in place. Like luckily I lived with roommates before and they had already kind of showed me some like things for chores, but when it came to actually landlording of like, hey, we have to set up a maintenance schedule for spring and then for fall, make sure that people are kind of taking care of the property and what they can and can't do, and kind of still enforcing that, all while balancing that I'm living with friends, right? So I can't just like, still got to treat them as if they're like, because they're still a paying customer, but they're also still my friends. So it's like balancing that act. And I was fortunate enough that I quickly learned, and I guess with the background in teaching, that just being a human and having that humanist approach does help a lot. Like us landlords, we get like a bad rep just because we all have seen like those posts about slum lords, basically, or I would call them slumdog millionaires, but really taking an approach that is not that, like to actually spend time with my tenants if they're ever dealing with anything, to kind of give them a little bit of that room. And yes, of course, we're here to make a profit and this is how we put food on the table, but really taking that moment to kind of just be human to these people and really empathize with whatever you're dealing with. And I found that helped a lot in the pandemic, just because no one knew what was going on, right? And I was able to essentially build better relationships with all my tenants. Everyone stayed. We kept all our homes. Some people went on forbearance. We kind of figured out different strategies. But at the end of the day, everyone kind of was able to help each other out. So it's like a little bit of give and take, and kind of being a human helped me a lot.
Definitely. So important. I mean, how you treat people in business is like everything. And sometimes we can get blindsided or forget about it, especially when you're busy or, money wise, things just aren't going the best. And it's like, it's easy to try to make a buck and not care too much. But the most successful people that I've met in my life and who I really respect are the people that know, bottom line, you need to treat people properly, and business is about people and serving people. So yeah,
totally
awesome. So getting into contractors now, the thing that I'm interested in a lot, just to double back what you said about having roommates. I went through that same thing where I bought a duplex. Nice. I rented the basement, lived upstairs with two of my roommates, and I understand the challenges, like they're your friends, but they're also like, you got to get rent and things like that. But it's a great way to learn real estate, and fairly like less risky because you're living in the house. You're able to rent out rooms, and it really does help a lot to build your net worth. So I know that story pretty well. So yeah, getting on into the contracting, I've seen many contractors who want to get into real estate investing. Pretty common. I mean, I went that route as well. Not like an active real estate investor, but I've done some flips, I've had some rentals, and it's easy for contractors because they know the construction side of it. What would your advice be for someone who knows maybe the contracting space, but not the real estate investing space? What would be your advice to them to get started?
Nice. That's a really good question. And definitely the contractors, for the most part, they probably know way more on the construction side than like your average real estate investor. I'd say for maybe the first one, depends how they want to kind of approach things. If they want to, let's say, just do it themselves, get it done, get that first one over with, I would suggest either like a house hack or a live and flip, just because the barrier, like we mentioned, the barrier of entry is so low that people can save up and get their 5% down. And if you're a contractor, you already have those skills. right? You
Mhm.
find a deal that's fairly easy, maybe just needs flooring or paint or even just like a new kitchen. You throw an IKEA kitchen in there or a new bathroom.
Mhm.
Uh, Nothing too intense, right? Just a deal that's fairly
Yep.
easy, or even just a regular buy and hold if they're going to do like just live in it. But a live and flip works as well, as where they can live there, do a little bit of renos, and then flip the house after.
Yep.
You could also do kind of like a live in burr if that's something that they're looking into, where they kind of want to
Mhm.
start building a portfolio. Now, if they want to kind of fast track things and really go far and kind of speed up that process, I think there's like two options there, where they could either go with an experienced investor and kind of act essentially as the active partner. So they would do the renos.
Mhm.
The experienced investor would fund most of the deal, if not the whole deal. And there you start building those relationships where you can essentially get consulting and kind of guidance from the real estate investor of what they want, what are they kind of trying to create, whether it's a flip, a burr, wholesale, or something. But you as a contractor, you already have those skills. So you can start seeing how these investors think, how they're looking at deals, how they're calculating their profits, whether it's a flip or a burr again.
Mhm.
And that way, you're not really doing it all on your own, and you can take a little bit of those bigger projects, right?
Yep.
The other option is just to hire a coach who can teach you essentially like, hey, what are the steps to doing that deal? Of course,
Mhm.
you already know the project management and the contracting side, but like, hey, how do you do creative financing? How do you raise money? How do you actually analyze a deal? How do you start attracting tenants and even managing tenants, right? Those are
Mhm.
skills that a contractor may not use or experience on a day-to-day basis.
Yep.
And then, yeah, it's kind of those choices of
Mhm.
depends how fast and how far they want to go in the beginning.
Yep.
And that's really going to determine what's the best kind of course of action for each contractor.
Definitely. As with like a lot of things in life, it usually kind of seems a little easier or not as much involved as it first as you first kind
Mhm.
of looking from the outside in until you get into it. Like my experience was there's a lot to learn going into real estate investing from contracting. Like you know how to run a business, you know how to do the construction part of it, but like finding deals, creating that team, finding investors, getting financing, just figuring out how the profit and loss and numbers and all that stuff comes together. There is quite a bit behind it, and I'm sure there's easier ways, but it's not always as cut and dry as it sometimes looks. There's quite a bit that goes into it to finding a good deal and making sure it's profitable on the tail end of it. So thanks for sharing that that advice for contractors looking to get into that. Now, you've done a lot of deals by now. You've worked with a lot of different contractors, trades. With what are some of the like techniques and systems that you've used to manage your projects? Like it's a little bit maybe higher level because you're hiring possibly like a general contractor, renovator, and things like that. But I'm sure a lot of it would be somewhat similar or very useful for like a GC to know kind of how you are managing the construction side of your projects.
Nice. No, it's a good question. So now I'm using a GC as of, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, the past year or so.
Yep.
But in the past, I was basically subcontracting everything. And
Okay.
I would just use checklists. Like, honestly, my systems back then were just like a simple
Yeah.
checklist, like, hey, do A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Mm-hmm.
Now, basically, what I kind of look for is one, a contractor that also invests, because I can create the best systems, but for me to take the time to train a contractor to be like, hey, this is how we run numbers on a deal. This is what a flip or a burr looks like.
Mm-hmm.
That would take some time. So I kind of sped up that process by finding contractors that also own rentals so that they know, hey, I'm going to do a burr, a buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat type of deal.
Yep.
Have you done that? And really, my system is just interviewing them. And I want to know if they've done that because now they know the quality of the renovation doesn't have to be like the style of a flip. And I get it. A lot of contractors really take pride in their work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying like I want like shoddy work, but it just doesn't have to be to that tier of a flip, right? And if we are doing a flip, I
Mm-hmm.
want my contractor to understand that as well. Like, hey, it's a flip. It's not just a rental. We want this to be like borderline perfect, as close as we
Yeah.
can to get
Mm-hmm.
there. Now, another system I'll use with these contractors after I've worked with them is basically almost build like a scope of work with them. Once my contractor and I figure out, okay, this is how we end up doing that project. For the next one, I'm just going to say, hey, let's do the same thing. Same carpet, same flooring, same paint, same kitchen, same everything. And that way it just again speeds up that process and makes it so that I don't have to think as much, contractor doesn't have to think as much, and we kind of like expedite that whole renovation. Now, the last kind of system I'll implement with working these contractors in doing my BRRRRs and my real estate deals is making sure that they have a team that's large enough to take these jobs, right? Because one thing I always tell my contractors is like, hey, I want like a long-term relationship, essentially. Like I want to continue doing deals for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? To do that, I need to make sure that they kind of understand scaling, that they're looking to hire and acquire more employees, more people to the team. And I really want them to also be team builders, right? Because that's something that I found has been necessary, especially as the business has grown and the investment portfolio has grown. And for the contractor to grow with us, they also have to have that similar mindset. So that's something that I'm looking as well, where, okay, how are their own business systems? Like, do they have like a checklist at minimum, or at least a way to hire and fire people? Do they have kind of an emergency, let's say, fund? Like one of my red flags is if a contractor asks me for extra funds that we didn't like talk about, where now I'm just like, hey, we don't really talk about that. Now I start questioning, hey, like, do you have like a cash reserve to pay your employees, or are you just using like the funds I give you to pay your employees? And I think that's what really separates what I've seen anyway, the really professional contractors from, I guess, the amateurs. And there's a time and place to use people that aren't necessarily like the top quality contractors, right? But the guys that are the best, that are worth bang for their buck, they usually tend to have cash, and then they're not hunting me down to be like, hey, I need to pay my people. Like, you got to pay me. Well, it's like, well, that's not in the payment schedule. I'm not technically supposed to pay you. And as a professional, as a business owner, like, you should have those cash reserves. So those are a couple of systems that I'll use.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of great points in there. I was gonna add something I was gonna bring up there again. Now I can't remember it, but I guess one thing early on you said, you started with some checklists and things like that, and I find that is often like a roadblock for a lot of businesses, but contractors especially, is like they think they have to create some sort of big like standard operating procedures and lists and some big system, when in reality it's like you just need to kind of start small with getting some checklists, whether that's a Word doc, a spreadsheet, whatever. And then you can always build and expand off of your, the systems that you have in place. Just start small, 5 steps, or, small, whatever, just certain documents that you use. And then from there you can build and improve them. And then also, from my experience working with real estate investors, I found the ones that really had their stuff together were generally, they had that scope of work. So everyone's working from the same playbook as far as like, this is, what we're doing in the house, as well as the selections, right? So this is the flooring, this is the paint colors, having all of that kind of before the project got started really showed professionalism from a real estate investor, and made the working arrangement with the contractor, really smooth. So I always appreciate that from a real estate investors when they had that stuff in place. So that's awesome. So now moving on to like, contractors, some of them have a bad rep for, being messy, not showing up, not answering the phone, what have you. Just like landlords, sometimes get a bad rap for whatever. It's not that most are like that. It's just, it does come up with some people. What are some big frustrations or challenges that you've had with working with contractors, and how do you think those contractors could possibly improve, what they're doing?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Something I've noticed, I guess, from early in the career to where I'm at now, is communication is huge. Like, that really is another one of those pieces that separates the good contractors from the not so good contractors. So for example, like my contractor now, like, he's awesome. I think you probably know Michael James there.
Yeah, awesome guy.
He communicates all the time. Like, he'll call, send text. Like if there's delays, he'll let me know. He'll explain why.
Yep.
If there's something that he catches that I might not have seen, he'll let me
Yep.
know and we'll start figuring out a plan. And
Hmm.
I guess one of the frustration I've seen in the past is like, yeah, running those contractors that won't necessarily communicate that well. And like, I don't
Yep.
need you to text me back in like 2 seconds, but like, give me
Hmm.
an update of like what's going on. Right. And
Yep.
that's why I really appreciate Michael there. And
Hmm.
another one would be, I guess, contractors that don't understand the real estate side of like quality of work, right? Like finishing for a rental is going to be
Hmm.
different from finishing of a flip, right? And
Yep.
of course, that takes some training or like some sort of experience. Like they got to do that or work with investors to understand that. But yeah, like I've had contractors be like, oh, we have to do it this way. We have to put quartz countertops and we got to make like, has to be like a nice design for the kitchen or else no one's going to really rent it. And then in my head, I'm just like, we don't need that. Or it's
Hmm.
not necessarily in this area. Like you can get away with the butcher block countertop. You can get away with just flat white cabinets. Like I get it. You want the nice quality stuff. It shows your work. It's also
Hmm.
for your marketing. But at the same time, like it's a different clientele, right? Like,
Yep.
and I guess the frustration I'm kind of leading to is that not all contractors understand the difference between working with a homeowner and then working with an investor, right? As an
Hmm.
investor, I want things cheap, basically. And of course,
Yep.
there's a limit to that.
Hmm.
But I can't just cough up what these homeowners are paying because then now my profits are gone. And again, that's what we use to put food on the table. So,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you have certain budgets that you need to stay within to be profitable, and sometimes you have to kind of pick and choose where, like you said before, bang for your buck, right? So maybe some things can just be standard and basic, and then you might splurge a little bit on a little bit of wow factor, depending if it's a flip or if it's a rental. Definitely there's different kind of tiers and levels of finishes and quality and materials and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
perfect.
Like
Yeah.
Michael's a perfect example that like we were running the scope of work at one of our deals and I was like, and he was asking me, he's like, hey, do you want to put like a backsplash here? And I was like, honestly, I don't think this place needs it. Like we can do it after, maybe if I sell the house in the future. And then
Mhm.
we kind of talked and he's like, hey, you know what? If it's in the budget and we can doesn't cost as much, I'll let you know. And I was like, cool. Like if
Yeah.
it's gonna add value, like a backsplash, it does add value to the kitchen. So yeah, we kind of near the end of the deal kind of found out, okay, we can afford to put the backsplash. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. But those are the things I really like, right? Like to have that contractor still see things as an investor and still understand, hey, like
Mhm.
what's gonna get trashed, what just needs to get maintenance and what needs like a full makeover.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Thanks. I always like asking clients and investors and people like what their frustration is with contractors, because it's great to know not everything is peachy and good all the time, and if we can learn from those lessons or certain frustrations, then everyone's better for it. And communication, totally get that. It's huge. Something a lot of people haven't been trained for. Don't have like any sort of expectation going in, with clients or with investors, and it is generally can be lacking. So I think that is a great opportunity for contractors to really step up and like ask clients, like, what is the level of communication you expect? Like, is it in line with what I can provide? What kind of updates can I give you regularly? How do what do you want to be notified of if things go sideways or this or that? And just opening the floor, I guess, for communication and what level of communication is expected. So that's awesome. So thanks so much, Patrick, for coming on and talking us through the world of real estate investing and how it relates with contracting. Super interesting and informative. What's the best way for people to get in contact with, to reach out to you if they want to learn more about getting into real estate or coaching, or just connecting with you about some of the topics or questions that they have about the interview that we did today?
Yeah, sweet. So best place probably is going to be finding me on Instagram. So
Mhm.
my Instagram handle would be at Patrick J Hilario, like Patrick, just the letter J,
Yep.
which is my middle name, oddly enough, and then Hilario, Hilario. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I just started using it, and honestly, I probably should have been on that for a while. Just had I think those last week I had 3 business people be like, "Hey, you should be on LinkedIn." Yeah, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, but LinkedIn's for people that actually want to do deals and stuff. And I was like, oh, it's probably smart. But yeah, find me on LinkedIn or Instagram. There is probably the best place.
Okay, awesome. That's wonderful. So we'll put some information in the description of the video as well. So we'll have some links or some ways to make it easy for you. Just go check that out, get the information, get connected with Patrick. And yeah, thanks again, Patrick, for coming on. Thanks everyone for watching. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments and we'll be happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Derek.
Yep.
Take care, everyone. See ya.